As time changes, so do our comics and the heroes and villains who fill their pages. Capes and pouches disappear, characters get more intense, either becoming more ruthless, more campy, or perhaps more noble, doubling down hard on their original traits to become even more set in their ways than they were originally, or changing completely entirely, doing a complete 180. Many of them will switch sides from good to evil and evil to good, finding redemption or losing faith and hope in everything they once believed in. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to examine some of the biggest changes of our favorite comic book characters as we count down the top 10 supervillains who have changed the most, part 2. And if you haven't checked out the part 1 to this list and you want even more supervillain goodness, you can click over here to check it out. And as always, be sure to stick around to the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way in the form of comment responses. Alright, now let's get counting. Number 10. Red Hulk. Thaddeus Ross was always a Hulk villain, but originally he was just an irate military general who believed the Hulk was too great a threat to be allowed to live. He became obsessed with capturing and often killing the Hulk. His obsession only grew more fervent over time, driving him to madness and eventually leading into his transformation from human Hulk nemesis known as General Ross into the villain known as Red Hulk. That's right, his hatred of the Hulk actually ended up leading him to later become like the Hulk, simply in order to get revenge. That is how twisted his mind had become over time, starting as a military general who was originally concerned with national safety, proving that rage can change you and leave you blind to the monster you may be transforming into. Number 9. King Shark. Originally, many believed that King Shark was simply a mutated human. However, it was rumored that King Shark may actually be linked to a being known by some as the Shark God, and this was later added to King Shark's origins and history, making him more than just a bizarre villain who happened to be part shark part man, as he now had mystical origins. His initial character design and appearance in the Superboy comic from the 90s has also changed radically in comparison to how he's often depicted as looking and dressing today, especially in the Harley Quinn animated series. Number 8. Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn has pretty much always been one of Spider-Man's greatest foes over the years, but while he's iconic and steadfast in many ways, he has also gone through a lot of changes just in regards to his own supervillain identities. He also briefly became a sort of bizarre anti-hero who was really still a villain in disguise when he fired the shot broadcast around the world, killing Skrull Queen Veronke, who was impersonating Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman. Killing the Queen of the Skrull Empire granted him hero status and put Norman in charge of his own hero agency, which he named Hammer, which replaced Fury's disbanded SHIELD. He then created and became the leader of his own superhero team composed of villains, known as the Dark Avengers. Number 7. Cheetah. We have just had so many cheetahs over the years and so many different origins for this character. Cheetah is a legacy Wonder Woman villain who went from being Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who was envious of Wonder Woman and as such became obsessed with opposing her as a hate-filled supervillain, to Barbara Minerva, an archaeologist who was actually once a good friend of Wonder Woman until she was captured and given superpowers by the plant god Kartaga, hopefully I'm saying that right, which allowed her to become part cheetah, part human creature. Barbara became an enemy of Wonder Woman not because she was jealous, but because she blamed Diana for not saving her. Yikes. Number 6. Galactus. Even with Galactus' origins, there was a lot of change going on with him from the beginning of his story. Just in his transition from alien humanoid and explorer Galen to the powerhouse that we know as Galactus. But while Galactus has been painted as a villain in the past, he also became understood as more of a neutral figure over time, with us even learning that although Galactus' insane power levels and hunger caused him to need to devour whole planets, he actually was a cosmic force that was needed when it came to maintaining balance in the cosmos. Basically, Galactus is a necessary evil. For a time though, he even moved from being more of a villain or neutral figure to actually being good, becoming the Life Bringer, a being who, instead of devouring planets and feeding on their energy, had the desire to recreate planets, including restoring the lost life and lost worlds that he had previously devoured. Of course, now he's back to being Galactus, so Number 5. Killer Frost. Killer Frost is a mantle that has been both associated with villains and heroes in DC Comics. One of the more notable characters to use the moniker was Dr. Caitlin Snow, a researcher who found her body had become merged with ice following an accident with a coolant system during a time when she was frantically trying to escape former colleagues who were revealed to be villains who wanted her dead. This transformation caused her to become a heat vampire, draining heat from others in order to survive. She could also produce and control ice spikes and harm others with her intensely icy touch. Caitlin Snow has been a hero on a few occasions, but she has also been a villain on a few occasions as well, often changing back and forth and flip-flopping between the two. Similar to Morbius, her main purpose is seeking a cure to her condition, and her alignment often depends on which hero or villain best suits this purpose. Number 4. Joker. So you might be surprised to see Joker on this list. After all, there are some characters here who have changed from the side of villain to hero, which to some might be considered a bigger change than anything we've seen from the consistently villainous character known as Joker. However, I would argue that just because his alignment has not changed much doesn't mean that his approach to crime hasn't changed a lot. The Joker originally was introduced 80 years ago as a very dark and sinister clown, murderous certainly, but not quite as violent, shocking, or horrific as he is now. There have also been various spins and takes on this character when it comes to the Joker's philosophy in regards to why crime and Batman are just so important to him. Over time, he's become much more obsessive, and his character has become more and more about pushing the limits when it comes to just how shocking and terrible his schemes can be. Just how much can the Joker push the envelope? How much can he shock or scare you? Originally, there was no real desire or need for the Joker to do this, by the way, in the comics. He kinda just did stuff because he wanted to. He used to be more about the action, and now he seems to be more about the reaction. It's all about a rise he can get out of you. I bet if you never reacted to the Joker, he would actually get super bored of being a villain to you. Number 3. Emma Frost. So many of the mutants, it feels like, are having their evolutions highlighted in the newest mutant line, Dawn of X, and this in no way excludes everyone's favorite telepathic villain turned hero, Emma Frost. Emma's changes really came from her passion as a teacher. Simply put, Emma was never an explicit villain in the comics. It was never really that simple for her. She's always been a more complex character, but for the sake of this list, we're going to consider her early on actions and feuds with the X-Men enough to refer to her as an X-Men villain, at least in the beginning. What we saw with Emma, however, was that even when she was in conflict with the X-Men team, she always seemed to admire and respect them somewhat. And it was this respect for Xavier's ability as a teacher that caused her to reconsider her own alignment, and her desire to be the best teacher possible for her students that inspired her to join Xavier and eventually the X-Men team, becoming more and more of a hero with each appearance as time went on, and as she also got closer to team leader Cyclops, aka Scott Summers. Number 2. Poison Ivy. Ivy herself has done a complete 180 since her initial introduction in the comics. She was originally a villain who used pheromones to seduce Batman, pining after him, and was painted as an eco-terrorist who put plant life before human life, often believing that humans needed to be exterminated. Since she was first introduced, Poison Ivy has actually moved closer towards becoming a hero, even starting to see that humans might not be as awful as she originally thought, and learning to tolerate and even form friendships with them through her bond with Harley Quinn. These two have actually proven to both be a huge part of contributing to the other's evolution, something that also often rings true in most people's everyday life. Many people learn and grow through the relationships that they form with others, giving us all a greater understanding of one another and the world around us. Number 1. Venom. Venom and Eddie Brock are probably the characters who have both undergone the most change together since their first introduction in the comics. It has honestly been a joy to read their growth and transition from supervillain to reluctant anti-hero to full-on anti-hero and even sometimes full-on hero. The symbiote we often refer to as Venom itself has had many partners over the years that it is bonded with, but it's safe to say that for better or for worse, Eddie Brock is the one who has inspired the most change in the symbiote, and the same could be said for the symbiote's influence on its main host, Brock himself. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who are some of your favorite villains from the comics? Do you prefer villains who stay more consistent, or do you like watching these characters evolve and change over time? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Dark Alternate Versions of Harley Quinn. WP comments comments, Harley shines more brightly as an anti-hero. Being a hero would just hold her down. I do agree, I think she would honestly struggle to connect to the motivations of being super duper good, which makes her better suited to the anti-hero lifestyle. But I would also be interested in reading a comic where the whole world was kind of just counting on Harley and she was the last hero left and so kind of had to be the most good. Could be interesting to see her wrestle with the concept of what good really means to her. Broken Bridge comments, had no idea a bizarro Harley Quinn existed. The things you learn every day. Right? She was only around for the one issue as far as I know, so pretty obscure, but she was still a pretty neat alternate in my mind. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and your feels shouted out in a future video. This has been Top 10 Nerd and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube. And given superpowers by the plant god, oh goodness, this name, Urzkartaga.